Okie doke. I mean, look, I guess before we even start talking about the Fiat on-ramp, there's probably a few things that I think are worth talking about. Firstly, even just Pulschain itself, I'm pretty impressed. We meet every day, obviously, and we're just super excited that within a week or so of launch, Pulschain's a top 3 EVM in terms of daily volume, and then I guess you could argue top 2 based on the scammy behavior on BSC with the one token. So I think that's pretty bullish. The bridge is working great. We've had more than 150 million bridged over already. The TVL on PulseX is approaching 500 million. The validators on Pulschain's is I think somewhere around 15,000, making it second only to Ethereum in terms of decentralization amongst EVMs. I mean, that's so impressive. The OKX launch yesterday, I was looking earlier, and I think it had around $4 million of volume in half a day. So whilst, as a community, we like to do our business on chain and we like the transparent volume we get from true DeFi, I mean, it's really helpful for adoption. So I think that's so bullish. I mean, anyone else want to weigh in on that while we give everyone a bit more time? I'm certainly happy for you all to speak. Don, Corey, whoever.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything you said is extremely bullish. First and foremost, thank you for inviting me up. It is the time here, so I'm going to have to put the kids in soon. But yeah, I mean, the total daily volume, I mean, I expected a lot, but man, to be number 3 on the list immediately, it's just incredible. And it just shows the power of our community. We may not be the largest, but we're one of the largest. And the power that we have, proven in numbers. Numbers don't lie, and those are real. And imagine what it's going to be like once all these projects start to come online, and it's a lot easier to onboard people into the system, and the rate of adoption comes back, the bull market comes back. Man, I get chills when I think about it. It is an incredible time to be in this ecosystem, and we're all blessed.
Yeah, you're spot on, Don. I mean, look, to build on your point around the other teams that are building and the things that aren't even released yet, I mean, I think that even is more bullish for this ecosystem. I mean, off the top of my head, we've got Fiat, an on-chain bank, Famous, an on-chain perp leverage exchange, P8, and their balancer fork, PHUX. None of that stuff from a contract basis is live on Pulschain. That's all value adding. Liquid loans, Fetch Oracle. I mean, the internet money wallet that you're working with, Don, I've been onboarding new users to that wallet, and the fact that it natively as a default supports Pulschain is just great for onboarding, and it's really helpful and easy for new users. I mean, what else? Power City, Portal X Swap will be huge. Earn Protocol will be great for reducing sell pressure on PulseX. I mean, then the NFT community. I mean, I've been in a few spaces the last week, and there's some really keen people that'll be looking out for, Pixel Park, Mintra, NFT on Pulse. The incredible. Corey, did you want to say something, mate? I'm just really spitballing at this point.
Yeah, no. Can you hear me better now? Can you hear me better now?
You're pretty clear, but some background noise. But go ahead, mate. Happy to have you hear what you have to say.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here. Sorry, I'm in a place where there's a lot of echoes right now. I honestly thought your thing was tomorrow, but I'm glad to be here. But it speaks volumes how much a community plays its part in the development of a blockchain, both the short term, medium, or long term. I've seen layer 1 chains launch and nobody knows about them. I've seen layer 1s launch and their community dies within a week. I've seen layer 1s launch and they end up collapsing. It goes to show the power of community. And being inside this community and outside, I've seen that there are probably the 6 largest communities in cryptocurrency are Bitcoin, Ethereum, Binance, Cardano, XRP, and Hex. Not in any particular order, of course. My point being is that when you have a blockchain with 150 projects ready to launch on it, PRC is launching every day during the PRC altcoin channel. You know what I'm talking about. And on top of that, you have a community that allowed for Hex to prosper, even in the midst of being gatekept. We're seeing this flash before our eyes, and I made a video about this. I got 3,000 views in 2 days. It was about what you said about Binance overtaking Pulschain overtaking Binance, and what you said with the 1 point, it goes to show how many other entities in this space are legitimately threatened by this particular entity. And when people are threatened, it generally means that you have something that other entities or companies do not. And what we have that's more important than anything in cryptocurrency, screw the tech, and I know a lot of people disagree with me on that, but screw the tech, screw the narratives. What's the most important thing in this space is community. And if you don't have a community, I say this almost in every stream, if you don't have a community, you don't have an innovation. You don't have an innovation because simply nobody knows about your technology. And as a result of nobody knowing your technology, doesn't matter if you created the cure for cancer. If nobody knows about it, well, it goes into oblivion. And I think that when you have projects like Liquid Loans, Power City, you guys know I've been very excited for Portal X specifically because of the multi-chain development. I find it very exciting that Pulschain will not be an isolated chain, because isolationism, I think, is going to be a foregone conclusion in the next couple of cycles. So we have multi-chain technology, we have internet money, we have fiat, we have what you guys are creating, banking partners. Like, this is exactly what's needed to make a blockchain great, make a blockchain prosper, and a blockchain actually survive for more than one cycle.
Corey, I think you're spot on with a lot of that. And look, I just do want to give you a quick shout out before we start to, go through the things we want to talk about today. And I guess what I want to say is that, I think that you've been a really, valuable asset to the Pulschain and Hex ecosystem. I know that sometimes from some of the more maxi portions of the community, you cop a little bit of heat. I personally think that people new to crypto want to hear about a broad range of crypto, and they like to come and make contact with a channel that speaks about positive projects in the community. And we may not all like all of them. So, I think what you're doing is really good. I think it's really net positive for everyone. I mean, I see some other people, that do things a little differently. I saw RH Max in here. Max does a great job. He's predominantly within our ecosystem. KDP, again, still predominantly within our ecosystem. But I think having a broad range of content creators, people engaging, it's just good for crypto in general. It's good for the main reason we're here. It's good for the assets that we like. So I just wanted to say thanks to you for that, only because I do notice at times on socials, you can cop a little bit of heat. And I think that's not warranted. We all have our little different preferences, and I think that prior to getting into cryptocurrency and digital asset investment, I never had a fight with someone over their investment thesis, and I don't really feel the need to do that within this space either. So just wanted to say thanks to Corey and the other content creators, Katie, Max, that I can see. You even see Blue Bum. I listened to him on the Hex Late Show back over in Australia, although I think you're in the States at the moment. But I just wanted to say thanks to all you guys as well, because you're an important part, albeit not building products necessarily.
Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate that. I'm trying my best to get the word out there to other communities, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And to politicians. I just had Roger Stone on, who's a close friend of Trump, who is now aware of Hex. So anybody who says that I don't do anything for Hex, well, talk to someone who's close friends with the next president about Hex and then cry and whine from it. So I just want to say that.
You're good, Corey. You're doing a good job, man. So look, I guess we've given everyone a little bit of time to come in. So I'm Resolute from Coast. You'll see Stoic here as well. We're pretty excited to talk to you guys today about our Fiat OnRamp. We've wanted to spend a little bit of time, I guess, fanboying over Pulschain. We've been so excited with the launch, and prior to being builders, we're also investors, I should say people with whom have strong political feelings about freedom of speech and freedom of movement. So we've been really excited to start using the chain and the apps that we have been researching and investing in for the last couple of years. I want to keep the start of this a little structured. I think that there's some things we'd like to tell everyone. Firstly, we'll tidy up a few little things about the weight-free claim just very quickly, and then we won't really hold this as a forum for that. We'll then talk a little bit about our Fiat OnRamp and just try to explain some things to everyone from a fairly zoomed out perspective. And then we're really happy to get into the absolute weeds with any questions that anyone has. I'm happy for people to ask questions at any point. I'll let Corey, I'll let Stoic, if you can give people the mic or whatever, but if we can try to keep the flow of conversation a little bit coherent, that'd be great. We're sort of wanting to take this opportunity while we're really busy to get a critical, massive information across to everyone. And hopefully, people can either be here live with us, they can re-listen to the recordings. Hopefully we'll get it up on YouTube. So anyway, thanks everyone for being here. And as I said, we might start just briefly with some little quick points on the weight-free claim. So just to be clear, claiming has ended. It occurred, at the time that PulseChain was launched. At this point, it's very optional for future participation. So people can go and mint their midnight bonus at our dApp. That's essentially like Hex Big Payday in that any unclaimed weight is redistributed to claimers. We have a time critical conversion of weight to weight v2. We've talked briefly about weight v2 being an updated immutable contract. It just has improved gas optimization, an inbuilt burn function, and allows better midnight bonus distribution. And it'll also give anyone who holds and locks that token fiat on-ramp and off-ramp discounts. On our Twitter pinned messages, we have all the contract addresses, audit links, YouTube, Twitter, and Telegram. There's lots of information. Feel free to engage with those. We really just want to talk about the fiat on-ramp though today. So if everyone's happy with that, that's where we'll progress the conversation to.
Yes, sir. Let's rock and roll.
Cool. Thanks, Don. So listen, I guess, like many of the building groups, we, have followed Richard for a long time. We've been in the cryptocurrency ecosystem industry as investors for, several years. We've listened to Richard say, if you have something that you think needs to be built, go ahead and build it. Don't cry to me about why isn't this done. And we've sort of really bought into his vision and idea of vertical integration. So as everyone knows, we're building a fiat on-ramp to bring to both Ethereum and PulseChain. And that's to, I guess, provide the service and utility for easy onboarding of users to the assets that we like. So Hex, PulseChain, Ethereum as a required asset potentially for financial transactions. So we're really trying to bring a simple product with minimal friction to the community that allows, onboarding to be easier. Our product will be a simple on-ramp. There'll be no trading, there'll be no leverage, there'll be no distractions. What we've found through both our own onboarding and as well looking at other online business companies is that the more steps in place that users need to click through, go through before they get to the product, the more likely you are to lose them. So I understand that we're all relatively advanced DeFi users. We don't think too much about, onboarding some fiat to a centralized exchange, sending that out to your private keys on the Ethereum network, using 1inch to swap to Hex, bridging that over to PulseChain, providing liquidity or staking, at least staking the native PHEX, I should clarify. We think that's all really easy, but this community is going to have a documentary and a movie. And as we enter the next bull market, people are going to hear about Hex. Corey's talking to politicians, KDP's tweeting to everyone on Twitter. Lots of people are doing outbound messaging, which is fantastic. But as these people hear about Hex, we want there to be somewhere they can go for PulseChain, for Hex, and get their economic energy onto PulseChain easily. So that's our large goal. That's our core business, is just bringing economic energy onto PulseChain. In terms of common questions we do get questions about whether or not we will be an off-ramp. And the answer is yes, we will also be an off-ramp. We get asked that every day on Twitter, despite having, passed that message on, probably 100 times. And then in terms of an update of where we're at, we are just getting to the point where we have passed our initial alpha test with our banking partner. So over the last, week or two, we've been doing an alpha test, which involves 5 customers using our fiat on-ramp openly with our financial partner Prime Trust. And that allows the testing of the financial rails, the testing of the KYC and customer verification, and the ensuring that both on-ramping and off-ramping works smoothly. So I guess what we're really happy to announce is that that's all been done and is all being passed. And we're looking to launch the beta version to anyone based in the US, with a few states that we need to, that will be initially in the first week unable to participate. But we're going to start launching our beta version of our fiat on-ramp in the next week or two. So we're pretty excited about that. The way that it will work is that people will be able to sign up, and we do have a link in our pinned tweet, which is essentially 0xcoast.com/beta. And at that point, you can sign up via email, and we'll give you instructions to join the beta testing when it becomes live. In terms of its simple functionality, it will be a computer, so laptop or desktop based beta version of our fiat on-ramp, and it will allow people to on-ramp funds via either credit card, debit card, bank transfer, or wire. And it will predominantly support the purchasing of USDC either directly on-chain via a bank transfer or via a digital account that will be made in your name. And that will facilitate your ability to move between your bank account and your on-chain account. It's probably worth stopping at this point to see if anyone has any broad questions, but I was envisaging we'd end up talking through things like how the flow of funds works, how we onboard new markets, how we avoid the requirement for money transmitter licenses. Very happy if anyone wants to put a hand up just at the moment and ask a question, whether it be one of the speakers initially or whatnot. Yeah, go for it, Corey.
So I just wanted to ask you, you said a few states in the United States. I thought that you guys were not going to come in the United States. Do you guys plan on, even though I'm going to be out of the state for about a year, but do you guys plan on having this ability in New York? I know it's very difficult when it comes to licensing a cryptocurrency in New York. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. Or are you able to say the states or no?
Yeah, so I can definitely address your question, and you are spot on that New York is very tricky with regards to this stuff. Now, I need to be clear that what we are saying is that for the beta version of our fiat on-ramp, which isn't the final version, we're going to initially launch supporting the majority of US-based states. We'll actually be able to onboard the UK, Australia, and Canada fairly rapidly and likely within that beta testing phase. The US states that we aren't able to provide the service for from day one include Hawaii, New York, South Dakota, Texas, and Connecticut. Although the last two, Texas and Connecticut, should be coming online shortly. I'm not sure, Stoic, do you want to add some color to that, mate? You've been in fairly deep with a lot of the regulatory and legal work. Might be a nice time for you to add that in.
Yeah, thanks, Rez. So guys, because we're trying to operate without money transmission licenses, we've had to design a product that makes us a tech layer. And as a result, we need to rely on the money transmitter licensure of our banking partner, Prime Trust, who are not only our banking partner, but also offer trust services because they're a trust company based in Nevada. What that means is that if for some reason Prime Trust loses or has a hold on a money transmitter license in a specific jurisdiction, that causes us to have to place a hold on that particular location as well. And so in the very short term, Texas and Connecticut are unable to be serviced by Prime Trust, which obviously limits us as well. But hopefully those will be turned around quite rapidly. They're already in the process of doing it. It's just a waiting phase right now. But it is a much faster process than if we were to try and do this ourselves. So hopefully that makes sense, and we'll have those markets back online relatively quickly. New York, unfortunately, Corey, is just a different animal. there is an effort to make a stablecoin framework, a regulatory framework in New York, and we are not sure what the requirements will be on companies to actually issue stablecoins or allow on-ramps in New York. It could be that they would have to have locally registered entities. We're not a New York entity at the moment, so that would be one hurdle we would have to likely jump through in order to get access to NYC.
Thanks for clarifying that. Thankfully, I'm getting out of this hellhole in a year or so, but I appreciate your openness about that.
So I'm going to invite two people to ask their questions shortly, but just to follow on, and cheers for that, Stoic. I know you've been deep into that. When we're describing the flow of funds and how we sit outside them, there is a retweet that we've just done on our Twitter profile, which is 0xcoast. It just shows an infographic to help people understand. But if you just imagine briefly the way the flow of funds will work, and the reason that we are describing ourselves and we function as a tech layer more than an actual money services business or a money transmitter, is that we don't custody any of your assets. So we ourselves are not a counterparty risk like we've seen become tragic with BlockFi, Celsius, FTX example. So the way our product will work is, if you imagine you have three buckets, you have your normal bank account that you can send money from via either card, bank transfer, or wire. And then in the middle, you have your digital account, which is one of the products that you will have when you register with our service. And then the last bucket is your on-chain private keys. You are essentially going to send your money from your bank account to your digital account, and we will not hold that money. And then if you want to transact primarily on-chain, which I assume most people will, you will move that money from your digital account to your private keys. And at no point do we actually sit in the flow of funds of those assets. For that reason, we don't require money transmission licenses, and it allows us to bring this product to market in a much more expedited fashion. There's probably some nuance that we can talk about later towards the end about what's actually involved in getting money transmitter licenses in different jurisdictions, even just within the US. But our process for onboarding new markets is essentially to demonstrate our flow of funds model and demonstrate that we are not within the flow of funds, and therefore we are not a custodian of anyone's assets, which means we don't require these different licensures, or we don't require to be regulated in that regards. Now, our process is we have a legal team, and they essentially are now quite well tuned at looking at the various regulatory environments in different countries, making contact with them and demonstrating that our model, which is actually somewhat innovative, is not within the flow of funds and therefore doesn't require specific regulatory involvement from that country. And on that regard, we have, been in communication positively with obviously the US as described, but also Australia, the UK, and Canada. So as we bring on more countries, the process is that we roll out this communication via our legal team. We receive correspondence back from that country saying, we agree, you are not a money transmitter, you are outside of the flow of funds, you are able to onboard users from that country. I just want to stop at that point. I think I did see Don's hand up first, so we might go to you, mate. Thanks for being patient. Feel free to ask whatever question you have, and then we'll go to Top Gun.
No problem, and thank you very much. First of all, congratulations on transitioning from alpha to beta. It's a very big time in a organization's history, so congratulations on that. My question is, are there going to be any daily limits on on-ramping and off-ramping? And if there are, which I'm assuming they're going to be, what are they?
So we can absolutely answer that. I think you're going to like the answer. I think Stoic's chomping at the bit to answer this one, so go for it, mate.
Hey, Don. So look, basically what we've been told is that they would like us to have a limit, and that the limit that we choose, while it's within our own purview to decide on, it's a little bit dependent on how much liquidity we can float and how much we can put in reserve accounts and things like that in order to facilitate transaction flow. So because we're trying to facilitate instantaneous transactions or as close to it as possible via ACH payments, it means that we have to keep like a fairly substantial reserve account in to allow people to transact and essentially float them while transactions are processing. So it's really dependent on how much we can support that system with, and we've got significant capital behind us to do that. But let's say hypothetically we ran into a Pulschain launch bridge situation with 160 million coming across it in 12 days. We would probably have to enforce some limits that we wouldn't want to, but we would just have a liquidity crunch where we would be able to go past it. That's a long answer. The short answer is there's probably not a substantial limit until you get up into the 100K area. And even if you hit a range like that and we were doing wire transfers, we would be able to have direct communication with the customer to increase the limit to facilitate, not quite anything, but pretty close to it. So I hope that answers your question.
Incredible. I love to hear it. Thank you.
Top Gun, what about you, mate?
Well, thanks for having me up here. I gotta say, I've been very happily tracking what you guys have been doing in this space for a while. My curiosities are actually a little bit around the wait token, because I really love the theme, play chicken with a billionaire, and wait and see how long to claim these. And I was wondering how that, if those were going to connect with this platform and how exactly those are related to it.
Yeah, thanks for your question. So initially I did a bit of a summary update on the Wait free claim and the Wait V2 contract, but I guess to cut to the chase, the Wait V2 token will be able to be used to secure discounts on the on or off ramping of funds. When we talked previously about the 3 buckets of money that are all under your control, so your bank account, your digital account, and then your private keys, platform fees will only be there will only be platform fees charged when you're moving between your bank account and your digital account. Any movement of funds or assets between your digital account and on-chain will have no additional fees. So you can actually off-ramp into stables, into fiat in your digital account without platform fees. Now, to bring it back to Wait V2, if you're a claimer, minted your midnight bonus, you should have a sufficient number of tokens to receive significant discounts, and that will be the utility of the Wait V2 token. We haven't finalized the token numbers specifically, but at this stage, our working model is that the fee structure will be, a 4% fee for on and off ramping, but that will be able to be reduced to 3%, 2%, and 1% if you lock 1,000, 10,000, or 10,000. 1,000, 10,000, or 100,000 Wait tokens. So there is some work to be done there. That should make very cheap on ramping compared to other DeFi on ramping tools like Transact, Wire, and Ramp. It should make it incredibly competitive, but that's currently the structure that we're going for. Did you have any comments you want to make, Stoic?
Yeah, that's all great. The only thing I was going to suggest was that maybe I could just mention exactly why this is with respect to the licensure that we're working with. So part of our case when we talk to regulators via our legal team or a legal team in that local location is that we're making the case that we're not a money transmitter and also that we're not a securities broker dealer. Now, we don't know how these assets are going to be treated long-term in each jurisdiction. It could change dramatically. But part of our case or part of what we're doing in making that case is saying like, hey, we don't collect trading fees, right? We're not going to charge people for swapping between assets. We're not even holding the assets. It's held by this trust company who we do business with. And so as a result, not only do we not hold the asset, but we also don't make fees on the trading of the asset. And so as a result, if we were to just have this be free with all of those transactions and on-ramping fees, we frankly just wouldn't be able to cover costs. So the only place that we can realistically put any sort of cost on the user that allows us to break even is on that on-ramp, off-ramp function. But there's very considerable use case for utilizing our service without even going back to your bank, right? Like if you just want to de-risk, take your money off your private keys or trade into your digital account, you can use a digital account without even touching your bank account. And as a result, you're not going to receive any fees from us. So just thought I'd mention that there's a specific reason for the fee being placed in that location, and it's because of the licensure associated with it.
Damo, you want to say something?
Yeah, g'day guys. Hey, look, just a quick question. I heard before about Prime Trust. I'm just inquiring, how did you come to signing up with them, and why did you choose Prime Trust?
Yeah, I might take that one too. So we interviewed a few banks. We've actually been working on finding a banking partner for almost a year now. And we signed a deal with Prime Trust in October of last year. So we've had to jump through significant hoops even in the last 6 months, 9 months, after getting into the agreement with them to pass all of the regulatory requirements and compliance checks that they've placed on us. But it was a long ordeal, honestly. We interviewed several banks that I think you guys might have heard of, right? We interviewed Silvergate, we interviewed Signature. We went a long way down the road with a couple of other banks that we spoke with at a pretty high level and we're a long way along with. And, the thing that concerned us about working with them was that, and I think GRC, I think I might have mentioned this on a space with him at one point, is that some of these companies literally said to us, look, we do not have the compliance resources to be able to verify that you guys are doing what you're saying you're doing. Sure, yeah, you've got this legal opinion that this is how you're operating, but we don't have the internal resources to be able to verify that on an ongoing basis. And so, it was a little bit of a blessing in disguise that they said that to us, and we were able to stop the process at that point, because you've seen what's happened to those organizations, since we were doing that interview process. And it probably makes a lot of sense that they're not doing so well if they don't have those compliance checks in place. Makes a lot of sense to me now in hindsight. So, it was an exhaustive process. We tried really hard to find the right partner. We think we did that despite the fact that it limits us a little bit by having to utilize their MTLs. That would have been the case with any banking partner. And we think that this digital account that they provide us with this custody service is actually pretty powerful. It certainly helps us to stay out of that flow of funds. It would be harder to do that. We would have to use FBO accounts and modern treasury ledgers and things like that in order to get around it without the digital account sort of infrastructure. So, we tried to contact as many banks as we could, work with the ones that were able to provide, a high level of compliance. And we think that, an exhaustive 9-month compliance process with Prime Trust probably means that we know them very well and they know us very well. And as a result, the product will be pretty good when it's released.
Don, mate, you had a question?
Yes, I'm looking at the flow of funds, that infographic that you posted. Very cool, by the way. The digital account is very intriguing to me. Is that on or off chain?
Yeah, Don, so you'll find this a lot. You probably know this actually, speaking to everybody else. A large portion of the people who provide custody services and trust services in crypto typically are resellers of a software platform called Fireblocks. I don't know if Rez has mentioned that earlier or not, but Fireblocks provides all of the node infrastructure and RPCs and things to allow Prime Trust to be able to custody those assets. And so we wouldn't be able to do this because we are not a digital trust company. But Fireblocks is the technology that allows Prime Trust to be that digital asset custodian. So when you are storing your assets with Prime Trust, it's going through Fireblocks technology to get to a private key that's held by that trust company, and the trust company is based in Nevada. So technically the custodian is Prime Trust, but the node infrastructure is with Fireblocks. I hope that makes sense.
It does. And thank you. I'm going to ask you some questions offline a little bit later, let you continue on with your flow. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, so thanks, guys. I mean, look, it probably makes sense at this point to just touch on Fireblocks a little bit more. As Stoic said, they're largely the underlying custodian of digital assets with many financial institutions, some centralized exchanges. I think they provide custody for about 35% of the digital asset industry. So they're actually, to a lot of people, an unknown massive player in the game that we're all participating in. We, over the last 2 years, we've been in contact with them on many occasions. I think, at one point we were speaking to them around offering custody of HEX as an ERC20. As that's a feature that we hope to bring to our product in the next version of its release, is direct HEX purchasing within your digital account that you can then send on chain. What we found intriguing is that, obviously there is some gatekeeping and that occurs with the HEX and PulseChain community. But when we spoke to Fireblocks, they were very happy to support HEX custody. Now, I'm unsure the degree to which that's helped some smaller centralized exchanges offer HEX listing, but it's certainly been net positive. And we're now speaking to them along the lines of supporting PulseChain natively, because they're a really big player in the custody of assets around the whole industry. So if we can bring their support both to our product and to others, I think you'll find that many other exchanges and institutions will be able to custody and therefore offer Pulse, other PRC20s. We even envisage the PulseChain side of our Fiat OnRamp, which we'll touch on again shortly. We envisage the fiat-backed stablecoin as not being an essential part of the product. We could imagine a time in which, if we have Fireblocks support, which we're down the pathway of securing, that teams like Liquid Loans with their Pulse-backed trustless stablecoin, teams like Power City with their trustless PLSX-backed stablecoin, they could potentially have their users off-ramping via their stable and on-ramping via their stable. And that could even be extended to other teams with their particular tokens. So there really is an opportunity for us to consolidate this relationship with Fireblocks. We've talked about this on live streams before and within Telegram groups and on Twitter, and there's probably been to some degree a lack of appreciation of how important it really is. But yeah, that's another aspect that we're working on in the background, a lot less publicly. And we think that would be an absolute game changer for this chain. So yeah, I'm not sure if you want to talk more, Stoic, around some of the conversations with Fireblocks that you've had. I've obviously had my own, but is there any more you want to add to that there, mate?
Yeah, look, we're in discussions about support for the chain. It's going about as well as it could be. It's very similar to the discussion we had about a year ago, vis-a-vis, like you said, asking them to support HEX. We've got multiple requests that we've made to them. Will they potentially support wrapped Pulse on Ethereum as an ERC20? That'd be a fairly light lift and would give us the ability to at least offer that through the on-ramp fairly quickly. And then they're actually working on some tools internally to allow development teams to link up their own EVM chains to their node infrastructure without needing Fireblocks to actually go through this lift with their dev resources. So, we're in this little bit of an interesting spot with them where I don't think they want to dedicate major resources to supporting the chain when they could be deploying resources to support all chains. And, obviously we're moving to a multi-chain world if we're not already there pretty quickly here. So that's kind of where things stand with them right now. If and when we have any sort of update, then we'll certainly have it available.
Yeah, so to elaborate on what I was mentioning earlier, so the beta version of our Fiat OnRamp will allow people to onboard Fiat via credit or debit card, bank transfer, or wire. At that point, they'll be able to purchase USDC on Ethereum and then move that on chain. Now, we understand that everyone's excited about PulseChain. and we understand that, now that the bridge is unclogged, arguably everyone's less desperate for alternate on-ramping solutions. We know that Power City's bringing Portal X Swap, which will be fantastic. And very shortly, we'll be bringing a PulseChain specific on-ramp. But the importance in terms of product development for us is that we can release this beta supporting Ethereum and have users battle test the UI with us and allow it to flesh out any other questions, plans for pivoting ever so slightly if required, the feature set going into the future, while we're building out the requirements for PulseChain. So, it's very deliberate, the decision to launch on Ethereum first, because it allows our team to work in parallel with finalizing the requirements for the PulseChain specific on-ramping while we battle test the Ethereum-based on-ramp. We'll continue to talk about a few things shortly. We've got plenty more to talk about. Don, you got a question, mate?
Yes. Did they put any restriction on integrating with other protocols and allowing protocol to build a front end around your service?
Yeah, I can help with that too, Don. So as of right now, the restrictions placed on us are basically that we can't produce an API or send out webhooks ourselves. So it means it's a little bit limiting for interface design for other providers. What we can do, if let's say we were to have our service be available through another domain, is we could do an iframe, we can do a subdomain. Like in the very short term here, we'll be able to have subdomains that are specific to other projects, maybe preloaded with their tokens, so that people can on-ramp directly to them. We're just a little bit limited in what we can do because, like we'd say, if we were to provide APIs and stuff, then it would be another different sort of user agreement between the end user and then the project that would be peripheral to us, and then us, and then Prime Trust. And they're just not willing to provide the compliance resources to do something like that. So for right now, it's a fairly limited feature set, unfortunately, but that's just where we're at.
Makes complete sense. One step at a time.
Thanks, Don. I think it's Damo, you got your hand up, mate, and then we might pop you down as a speaker afterwards, but go ahead.
Yeah, g'day. Hey, quick question, just regards KYC in your product. Can you elaborate on any of that? Cheers.
Yeah, I was having this chat. I'm not sure if anyone saw the 48-hour PulseChain live stream. So I was having a conversation for about an hour with Hex Tangent and Toby One. We talked about KYC, and certainly KYC is an area that a lot of people within the sort of libertarian side of crypto investing feel very strongly about. I guess the important thing is so firstly, KYC will be a requirement of our product, but then to go back to some things we talked about previously. We are creating much more than a simple DeFi on-ramp. This isn't going to be the kind of on-ramp that you can send $500 and that's all. A lot of the simple DeFi on-ramps also are not off-ramps. So we're trying to bring a much superior product, and your digital account will have much more power. What I think people should envisage is that if they were to walk into a bank and open a bank account, they should expect a similar process when creating their digital account with Prime Trust via our service. So I'll just paint a picture as to what that will look like for the majority of users initially. So when you register as a user of Coast, you'll put in your name, date of birth, address, social security number. At that point, you will undergo a verification process So we use the company Socure, which is, well regarded as an industry leader in this, and they're actually well ahead of all the jurisdictions around the world, what the ID requirements are in different places. So they're actually utilized by Prime Trust to make that job easier and to prevent Prime Trust or us individually from having to do it for different countries and different users on an individual and manual basis. But what it will look like is you will, when you go to verify your account, there'll either be a QR code or you'll receive a text message from Socure. That'll ask you for two things. That'll ask you to take a photograph of an official identification document, most commonly either a driver's license or a passport. And then within the same browser window that opens, which is securely done from Socure, it will also allow you to take a photo of yourself as a selfie, not holding anything up like the hostage photos we've all taken for centralized exchanges, but that will be the KYC requirement for the majority of users. What we then anticipate is about 98 to 99% of users will have their verification complete within 2 minutes. There's probably two important points to that, and then Stoic, I'll let you add anything you want to, because I know you've been down this KYC rabbit hole extensively, is people who misspell their name or address when they're signing up with the product are likely to fail their KYC simply due to spelling error, which will be easily rectified. Secondly, if you're signing up with a VPN, it can cause problems from the point of view of you're registering within a jurisdiction, but your IP address is suggesting you may not be within an eligible jurisdiction. Do you want to mention anything, Stoic, along those lines, mate?
Yeah, the only thing I just want to add to that is just clarification that we are not storing any of this information. And that's one of the benefits of using it in this way is like, we're not looking at your selfies. We never touch them. We don't even store local versions on our database of any of your personal identifying information. There is really just a UID that we store that's related to your information in Prime Trust. So just keep in mind that when you're working with us, you're opening a digital account. It's like having a borderless digital bank account. And even though we're the front end for it, it's really a Prime Trust user agreement that you have. So they are the ones holding your information, not us. And we don't have your KYC stuff either. So, we're not going through your selfies. We're not looking at your passport. We don't even have access to it. Even if we wanted to, we couldn't. So something to keep in mind when you're working with us.
Yeah, probably the last thing to say, and Tangent, I see you're online, mate. How you doing, mate? I thought you didn't wake up this early over in WA, but good to see you. We talked about this on stream the other week, and we understand that we are one of multiple ways of getting economic energy onto PulseChain. We're trying to bring additional functionality and utility, and we understand that our product may not be for everyone. If you're looking for a no KYC requirement, simple on-ramp for small amounts of funds, maybe using Coast and the product that we have isn't for you. And that's okay. We don't view competition as our enemy. We don't feel the need to be the only way to get economic energy onto PulseChain so that we can benefit in any way financially. We are going behind the scenes talking with Fireblocks so that many different people can also provide a similar service that we are. We're in this to bring utility and economic energy into the chain. And if that's not via our service, that's okay. If our service is something that 30, 40, 50, 60, 10% of the community want to use, that's awesome. We're just trying to add vertical integration to this ecosystem in our own way. And this is, we've deliberately designed it in this way because we think it's very powerful and useful. But, if people want to say, hey, I don't want a KYC, we're not offended by that. Everyone's able to have their own opinions, decisions, choices, to use the product in the way that our product will function. Unfortunately, KYC is a cost of doing business. But again, we're happy for questions, we're happy for comments, we're happy for people if they don't want to use the product. We're sure that we'll appeal to some people. We hope that we make onboarding really simple. I'm envisaging, and we talk about it all the time, that, people will be watching the highest of stakes and think, well, we want some of this. And I'm hoping that their onboarding process isn't sign up to Coinbase, buy some USDC, realize they don't have Ethereum when they're on chain, then get Ethereum, then try to bridge to Pulschain. We want to provide an area where they can get on chain easily, and it doesn't have to be for every user, but our goal is just to be net positive to the ecosystem, bring more economic energy in so we can all win. Corey, I see your hand up, but Triple X, mate, you were the next hand up, so I might just go first to you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much for letting me speak. And once again, I want to give you guys a great amount of respect, Coast crew, for bringing value onto the Pulschain ecosystem, because we do desperately need a platform that allows us to do on and off ramps. But here's my question, my man. Well, it's more of a technical help. So I'm wondering if I did this correctly or not. So when Pulschain became live, what I did was I went to the Coast dApp, and I converted my watts into the V2, I believe. And when I did that, I also claimed my midnight bonus on the Ethereum side. And when I did that, everything was fine and dandy, right? So I went back I switched over to the Pulschain network. And when I tried to convert the tokens of the weight tokens, it didn't give me that option to convert. So it did give me the option to claim my midnight bonus under the Pulse side. So when I clicked on the icon, it just leads me to a page where it says loading, and it just keeps me at that page forever and a day, and it won't give me any progress. So I want to know, am I missing a step, or can you only just claim the midnight bonus on either Ethereum or on the Pulse chain side? Thank you very much.
Hey mate, yeah. So typically the issue that people are having with this, there's a couple. We're trying to focus on fiat on-ramp stuff, but I'll just knock this out quickly. If you were a person who claimed very late, there's a chance that you might have claimed after Pulschain was actually live, but before the midnight bonus function was run. As a result, you wouldn't get a copy of your weight V1 on Pulschain, and therefore you wouldn't be able to convert it from weight V1 to weight V2. However, you would still get your midnight bonus. So it's just one of the features of the product design. We didn't know when Richard would launch everything, and some people unfortunately found themselves in that little window, which was just a variable that was outside of our control, unfortunately.
Yeah, thanks, Triple X. And as Stoic said, we're very happy to help you guys with, the weight claiming and conversions. We want to use this as an opportunity to update everyone on the Fiat on-ramp, but what your question was really important and valuable. Corey, can we flick to you, mate?
Yeah, man. So I just wanted to say, can you? I'm in a better place now, so I think my mic is not terrible. But I want to say that I think that there's a couple of things you said that really resonated with me. The first thing is that you're not here to compete, and I think that's very important. With a new budding blockchain, you can't have an atmosphere where every single person or every single product is competing with one another, because if you do, there's competition within competition, and as a result of that competition within the competition of that ecosystem, well, you're setting yourself up for deception, you're setting yourself up for vindictiveness, and it's not a very robust and efficient way to bring about adoption for any product launching on a new chain when there are hundreds of chains out there that already are established. So I want to make that first and foremost. I want to make that clear. The second thing I want to say is I absolutely agree with you. Like, we need an easy onboard ramp. Like right now, like with the exception of individuals that sacrificed as a result of me 2 years ago, I have not onboard anybody in real life because it's very inefficient and very annoying to do right now. You have to buy Ethereum, then you gotta put it onto one of the wallets, then you gotta bridge it over from MetaMask, then you gotta put wrapped contracts, then you gotta buy PulseX, and you gotta bridge back, and it seems like it's very inefficient. And it's very, 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 very intimidating for even an experienced user of DeFi. So I am hoping, as things move forward, that this product specifically is able to kind of bridge that gap, because right now, of course, with every budding blockchain, you're not going to have many solutions whatsoever surrounding how to garner any of these particular to garner these cryptocurrencies. However, I'm very confident that as time progresses, products like yours will assist in onboarding, and I'm hoping that this will be the case moving forward, because if not, it's going to be very difficult to onboard normies. And I had this discussion actually on Maddie's 48-hour stream, and somebody said to me, me and a bit had a really good conversation. He was like, well, Corey, what do you think's easier, and what do you think more people are going to do right now? Onboard people into eHex or pHex? And I said, honestly, I'm onboarding people into eHex if that's the choice, because it's very easy to do. All you have to do is buy Ethereum, go on to MetaMask, go on to Uniswap, make a swap, and you're done. It's that simple. It's not that simple to garner pHex. It's very, 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 very annoying. So I think that it's very, very crucial for products like yours to exist, and like, for example, like Power City's multi-chain to exist. So it's a little bit of ease of use. So I want to say that what you guys are doing is more important than I think a lot of people realize in this community surrounding onboards, because onboarding people into a new chain is very annoying. So keep doing what you guys are doing.
Thanks, Corey. I mean, look, it's probably a good time to talk about how we incorporate Pulschain. We've got two parallel development processes occurring in that regards. As we've mentioned earlier, one of them at this stage is still mostly boardroom and meetings, but the other one is actually what we're developing. So initially, our product supporting Pulschain will be a fiat-backed stablecoin called CST. I think the first day or so of ratio trading and watching, people get wrecked swapping for forked stables, which was just both shocking and tragic, highlighted to us that having a different ticker is probably very valuable, and one that's not going to be confused with any worthless stablecoins that are being copied at the time of the fork. So CST, as I've mentioned, will be different to USDL and PXDC that people have heard a lot about, and it'll be more like a traditional fiat-backed stablecoin, such as USDC or TUSD. It will work very simply. So it will be a PRC20 contract, which will allow a single CST to be minted if a single US dollar is moved from your digital account to the CST account. That CST account is held as USD. So the reserve is not T-bills. It's certainly not any cryptocurrency tokens. It's held simply as USD. And that CST account will form the backing for the CST tokens on chain. Now, I'll give the example of one token. You can bring on 100,000 USD and mint 100,000 CST tokens on chain. When it comes to wanting to off-ramp via CST, the process is that you will burn CST, and that will allow the money to move from the CST account to your digital account. Now, in terms of where we're at in developing that, the CST contract is written. The CST contract is fine. It's will undergo auditing prior to release. Obviously, being financial software, we find that really important. We're just working through a process of integrating a Oracle service to allow essentially the communication between the contract and the webhooks within the digital account to say, yes, CST has been burnt, and now CST may be released, or conversely, CST has been moved into the CST account, and therefore CST can be minted. So that is how people will on and off ramp from a zoomed out perspective. When it comes to the CST contract, they're on testnet v3 and v4. They work fine. It's just the final steps of integrating the Oracle service on Pulschain. Now, fortunately, the Liquid Loans team is bringing the Fetch Oracle service. We've been doing some meetings in the backplay on their private testnet. Fetch is essentially a rebranding of Telor that's being brought over to Pulschain, and that's, we certainly appreciate the work the Liquid Loans team have done in onboarding that tech company to Pulschain. It's fantastic, but that's the zoomed out picture on how that will work. Now, as I mentioned, the other parallel process is that we're having conversations with Fireblocks. We discussed their role as digital custodians for many platforms previously. As they come to the point of supporting PulseChain natively, we'll be able to offer PLS and other PRC20s, which may be the over collateralized stablecoins that are liquidity forks directly for on and off ramping. So we think the community likes variety. We think there's value to both of those things. Obviously, the direct to on-chain complete DeFi stablecoin, which would be CST, is great. We understand that if we're holding and people are purchasing PLS or other PRC20s or HEX, for example, in their digital account, that will not be in their own custody, but they can be moved immediately on-chain. So that's the process, that's the vision, and that's the product we'll be releasing for PulseChain. If anyone has any questions about them, it's a perfect time to ask. All right. Well, I mean, it looks like there aren't any particular questions in regards to that. Stoic, do you want to touch base briefly, just in a little bit more detail about CST, how we view that in terms of its importance to the ecosystem, how we think about it if Fireblocks comes online, and how we fit in, more broadly to collaborate with other teams and on PulseChain and this ecosystem, mate?
Yeah, sure. So one of the strange things about sort of building this and working so hard on it is that we kind of think that CST might not be something that's necessary for the ecosystem. We really like liquidity forks. We think the liquid loans and Power City products are going to be fantastic. We think they're collateralized against really good assets that we want to hold and that we want to borrow against ourselves. And so we're very thankful for those products being launched. Is there value to having a one-to-one backed fiat stablecoin on PulseChain? There very likely is, but it's not necessarily a requirement. As soon as we can get some support with respect to Fireblocks and Prime Trust custodying those digital assets, we're happy to work with any other project in the ecosystem. In fact, we're in the builders group. We're actively communicating with other projects. We think it would be great if there was a way to just on-ramp directly into your favorite token, whether it be a perpetual or whether it be, a hedron or some other sort of thing. And we'd like to be able to provide our service, probably branded or integrated with those other websites and those other dApps. Because like we say, we want to reduce friction as much as possible. And if we can eliminate ourselves as a point of friction, well, that's good too, right? So, better than having people buy CST and mint CST and then, LP CST and swap it for something else. If we can cut ourselves out of that process and just have someone directly on ramp to the thing that they like, we're going to work very hard to make that happen. So, it goes back to what Resolute's been saying here. We're trying to get economic energy on the chain as simply as possible. We understand that about 25% of users drop off in every step along the way. And so, we don't want to see that attrition of capital coming onto the chain. So fewer steps is better. And if that means cutting out our own steps and our own profit centers, that's okay too. So that's something we're working very hard towards.
So, mate, as you know, I've got to sit down with Fireblocks shortly. So I'm going to let you continue to run the space and I'll start to fade into the background and stay muted. I do have a DM from a user who wants to ask about proof of reserves, how that differs between CST and other stablecoins in the space. Can you talk to that, mate? And then you just handle anyone's questions or the conversation. Is that cool?
Yeah, good deal. No problem, man. So that's a good question. It probably has a lot to do with what we've seen, earlier this year in the industry, with the depegging of different assets, even, algorithmic stablecoins, things that didn't have these different ways of collateralizing with real world assets. The simplest thing I can tell you is that it's going to be one-to-one, fiat backed, and actually we don't have an ability to influence that. The way we've designed it with the smart contract and the chain link node, or in this case the fetch oracle, is such that we don't have oversight on that. So we can't actually influence it. When there are deposits made to the reserve account, it allows that user to mint their CSD, and we don't get to step into that process. Also, with respect to the reserves, most likely what we're going to do is have either quarterly or monthly accounting reports provided by a third party. These are a little bit expensive, so while we would like to have it as frequently as possible, I don't know that there's a tremendous amount of value to it being monthly as opposed to quarterly, something like that. So the shortest answer here is, it'll be periodic, fairly frequent, independent accounting firm that will review the assets in the Coast stablecoin reserve account, compare them to the circulating supply of the Coast stablecoin, when you add up all of the liquidity in different places as well, and fingers crossed those things match up. They should have to, because we don't have the ability to change it. So the only risk with that is that the stablecoin would actually become over collateralized because of the way we've got it set up. When you're off ramping, the stablecoin's actually burned. It's not held in the reserve account. It's not custodied by us or anything like that. And so the only risk would be that someone might burn a stablecoin, by accident, not having a Coast account. So the very worst situation here in terms of it not being one-to-one collateralized would be over collateralized, but I suspect that's not super likely. So hopefully that answers the question. Might throw that to anyone else who's got something they specifically want to touch on.
If anybody wants to come up and speak, we have a whole group of there's only 4 speakers up here. We got a whole room to come up on stage. So if you want to speak, feel free to come up here. I see there are some pretty big names in here. If they have any questions that they want to ask Stoic, and then this is very, very important. This innovation is specifically very important because of the onboarding mechanism that it creates. So if anybody has any questions, please come up. Don't be scared. We don't bite. I see there's about 170 of you in here. So definitely consider coming up here. While we wait for other people to come up here, Stoic, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on where do you foresee, after what's going on now, what's the main plan for expanding into other sectors? I know you brought up Australia, you brought up the UK, you brought up the United States. Have you guys have plans to maybe integrate into like South America, Central America, Africa, India? Are there any plans for that down the road?
Yeah, there are. So like I said earlier a little bit, it's a little bit dependent on the money transmission that Prime Trust can offer us. Now, we're not 100% tied to what they can do for us. We can actually go outside that if we can make a good case to their compliance team that not only we are outside the money transmission requirements, but they are as well. And so we've sort of got a couple of different verticals in the business here. One is, how do we create more products that would allow more people to use the tool because they have, a broader interest or would like to do more things? And then how do we get, in the second vertical, like how do we get out to more markets? And so we actually had to put a little bit of a hold on UK stuff. And one of the reasons why the beta will launch without support for UK customers is it was a little bit too complicated to go through compliance checks for the UK with Prime Trust in parallel to the US. So even though we're sort of set up, we've got our legal opinion written for the UK, we're ready to go. Actually, the money transmission rules from the FCA are pretty favorable. And we've had good communication with that regulator. So they've gotten back to us and said they're very confident that we don't require local registration even. So we're in a good spot with them, but we had to put that on hold so that we could get through compliance for the US with Prime Trust. Now that we're out of that alpha phase and we're into beta and we can start accepting a broad range of customers, now we can add new markets quite easily. And the first three that Resolute was mentioning are the UK, like I described, and then Canada and Australia as well. It might be worth just talking a little bit about what's required in order to get one of these new markets on board, because it's not as simple as it might sound. You don't just add them to the drop down and then allow a couple of changes to the address information. We have to have our legal team hire a legal team in the local jurisdiction. Our legal team has to educate the local legal team, so we're paying 2 legal fees there. We have to educate their legal team on our business process, what Prime Trust money transmission license covers. And then in a lot of circumstances, we also have to educate them on their own countries or local jurisdictions' money transmission rules and why we fall outside of them. So, you're talking about a round trip of something like 2 months, and it can run as high as 30, 40 grand. And I've heard of companies who got into situations where it's much more than that. I think we're in a good space with our legal team that I can say confidently that we're on the lower end of that, thankfully. But you're talking about a 2-month commitment. You're talking about a significant outlay of capital. You're talking about significant communication with each regulator on an ongoing basis. And the most difficult thing about this is that the regulators are prone to either change their minds or have different circumstances arise, either legislatively or otherwise, that would cause for there to have to be a change in how you would go about getting the ability to operate. So, to give you some insight here, Corey, into some other markets, you mentioned South America. We were all set to start offering services very quickly in Argentina and Brazil. And that was until there was an election in Brazil and there was some political upheaval. And as of right now, Prime Trust has been told by the Brazilian government, we don't know whether you should be operating, and we would prefer that you didn't in the short term. So, look, there's variables in this process with adding new markets that are not only well outside our control, but outside our banking partners' control. And I dare say in some circumstances outside the country's control. So, I'm trying to keep this lighthearted, but it does make it very, very difficult. So, if we're bringing on a new market, we can confidently say that we've spent significant resources to make sure that we're doing it right in that place. So I hope that answers the question. Don, do you have anything you want to add to that, mate?
Actually, no, but I can understand and imagine the process that you must go through, because dealing with some of these other agencies and regulatory structures, they are quite difficult. They're confusing. People don't get back to you so quickly, and it definitely is a complicated scenario. So good on you for keeping up the good fight. We appreciate that. But my question has to do with fees, and I'm sorry if you answered this already, but I had to put my phone down for a little bit. But if you could talk a little bit about the fee structure and what it would cost to get in and out, things of that nature, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. Earlier I talked a little bit about why the fees are where they are in the flow. So I'll just summarize that again quite briefly. Part of our case to regulators that we're not a money transmitter and that we're also not a securities broker dealer is that we're not taking fees when assets are exchanged between fiat and a stablecoin. That's very important, because if we were taking fees, they might class us differently, and that would raise a huge, would even increase our regulatory burden far in excess of where it is currently. So what we've decided to do is place the fees in the movement of funds between the buckets that Resolute was mentioning, the bucket of your personal bank account and your digital account with Prime Trust. So we will not be responsible for any of the fees. Say you're sending USDC to your digital account and then trading it for fiat. We are not involved in a fee in that space at all. Similarly, if you're taking funds out of your digital account and sending them on chain, not only do we not charge a fee, but actually we've been able to get Prime Trust to front the Ethereum costs for sending that outbound transaction. So you know, if it's an ERC20, which it is in this case, you might save $4, you might save $17, you know, depending on the network fees at the time. So that's quite a nice feature as well. But the reality of what we've had to do there is we've had to just put all of the fees into the movement of funds between your bank account and your digital account. And we've tried to keep that as low as possible. And in fact, we floated the idea for a while of having sort of a reducing scale of fees, where we would have a base fee of 4%, and then you could reduce that from 4 to 3, 3 to 2, and 2 to 1. Originally, we talked about this online as being a hex locking contract. We got some justifiable pushback on that because it was actually, you know, just a stopgap measure, because we were in a situation where we couldn't talk openly about future use cases for the weight token. And if we had have said, hey, you know, weight V2 is going to be the way that you get discounts in the on-ramp, it would have been very likely, you know, creating an expectation of profit from managerial work that we would have been putting in. And we didn't want to flirt with that, even though, you know, it might not have been an issue. We just didn't want to mess with it. So we described it as hex originally, but now we've sort of pivoted to what it was originally projected to be, which was weight V2. So the simplest way to describe the fee structure is it's a base fee of 4%. These amounts are subject to change to make sure that it's sort of fair and reasonable for everybody. But to start with, if you lock 1,000 weight V2 in the contract, your on-ramp fee will reduce from 4% to 3%. And if you lock 10,000 weight, it'll go from 3 to 2. And if you lock 100,000 weight, it'll go from 2 to 1. 1 being the base, although, you know, when we add enterprise support, entity support later this year, with LLCs, retirement funds, 401ks, etc., it's very likely that we would also increase those limits. Reduce the fees and increase the limits for that sort of subset of users. But that's sort of how we've structured it. I hope that makes sense. Same going on, same going off. That's our only sort of revenue stream for the business.
It definitely does. And follow-up question. So weight V2, let's just say, just for round numbers conversation, I want to move $1,000 off. It's going to be a 4% fee to do that from my digital bucket to my fiat, whatever bank account or wherever I choose. Now, how long do I have to have weight V2 in? Can I buy some weight V2, put it in the contract, lock it up the next day, and go off ramp? I mean, there might be some game theory there of like, hey, if I buy it, I might save 1%. You know, talk to me through some of the time frames on how long you have to.
Yeah, sure. So you can lock the token for any period of time you want. When you initiate a transaction, the system is smart enough to figure out how much weight you have locked at that time and apply the correct fee. When that happens, you are then free to unlock those tokens if you want. But one of the fundamentals in weight V2 is that a portion of the staked or locked tokens is then burned. So you only receive back, say, for example, 95% of what you originally locked. Now, that should be a very, very small amount in terms of actual dollar value, but it would, of course, make weight V2 slightly deflationary. So that's just to prevent someone locking, like you say, for a very short period of time to get all of their discounts and then unlocking. You can totally do that, not a problem. If you want to just come and lock 100,000 and then off-ramp or unlock them immediately after, go for it, no problem. We'll consider the weight V2 holders, the deflationary impact for the weight V2 holders as the benefit in this case.
Very cool fundamental. I like that.
Yeah, the fee structure that we settled on is remarkably similar to what you'll find in 1inch. I don't think they have an unlocking fee, but what you get is when you're using 1inch, if you decide to lock, or I think it's stake your 1inch tokens, you receive a gas refund from the trades that you make on the platform. We didn't decide to do that in the form of a new token that we could release. We've seen other stablecoin issuers do things like that with like CPRX and a couple of other like rewards programs. We frankly found them to be pretty unsuccessful. There was also some speculation at one point that what we could do is have like, say a staking platform for Wave V2 where you would earn a portion of the on-ramping fees. And we did consider that, and we did discuss that with our attorneys. We got quite a ways down that road. Ultimately, we found that it probably wasn't worth the regulatory burden to go to the SEC and try and get a no action letter on that function, given the amount of money that would be involved and the amount of benefit to users. So we decided to go with a deflationary coin. It seems to fit the ecosystem a little bit better. So that was part of the design intention. I know you guys are doing something that's in the opposite direction. I think there's plenty of merit to it. It's just not something we decided to do.
Sure. I mean, that's what makes this ecosystem beautiful. We all do things a little differently, and people interact how they feel fit. That said, does Wait V2 have a burn function in it, or will you be sending it to the debt address?
No, Wait V2 does have a burn function in it. It's one of the upgrades that we made. Not only is there a burn function, there's also a proof of benevolence function. So it's very likely that you could see that being utilized at some point in the future as well. I've seen a couple of people who've asked to speak in the last little bit of a while, and I think I've granted access, but then they've dropped out. So I haven't been able to get those couple of questions across. But I'll open it up again. Is anyone else sort of curious about how this all works? Is there anything I can elaborate on? We have spent quite a bit of time on this, so we're happy to answer questions. It's not a problem.
Yeah, guys, I see there's 152 people in here. If you have a question, please come up and ask. There's only there's only two speakers up here. So if you guys have a question, Trennis, again, I really think that an onboarding tool like this is extremely valuable on the basis that right now it is extremely annoying to onboard somebody onto Pulschain, specifically in America, because we don't have any onboarding solutions besides using the bridge. So if you have any questions, please ask Don. What's up, brother?
Yeah, and I apologize for continuing to hog the mic, but I do have a lot of questions. And I love the advancement. I love what you guys are doing. If you could walk me through a little bit the process on how the on-chain data is going to look when I go from let's say I'm in my wallet with private keys, I already on-ramped, and now I want to off-ramp, and I keep my assets in the digital wallet, but then I send those assets that are in the digital wallet to another wallet that I own the keys to. What does that transaction hash look like? I mean, who's going to be able to see, well, not who's going to be able to see, but what does it actually look like? What are they going to read? I mean, is it kind of like you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah. So if you look on chain at the ERC20 token transactions of the receiving address, you'll see an incoming transaction. It'll be from the Prime Trust account. Each digital account, so to elaborate on this a little bit more, each digital account actually has its own, Ethereum address, we'll call it for now, but it will have a Pulschain address as well. When you're sending money into your digital account, you have to send it to the address that's associated with your digital account, which is all on chain, right? It's just that the private keys are held by the trust company. When you send a transaction out, similarly, it'll come from that sending address and come out to your external wallet. One of the advantages of doing it with a trust company in this way is that they've obviously got multi-sig and there's a lot of stuff going on there. And like I said, you should treat this like a bank account, right? The funds are safe with them as long as you feel comfortable with utilizing a service like that. But one of the advantages to using it in this way is that your digital account can have multiple Ethereum addresses attached to it. So if you're a security minded or a security conscious person, you don't want to see or don't want people to see on chain that you're off ramping to one service over and over again, you can actually, through our interface, create yourself multiple ETH or Pulse addresses such that it looks like you're sending to a different address each time. So it's not, a complete anonymity set or anything, but it does help you sort of mask what you're doing a little bit.
That's what I was hoping for. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. There's quite a few features that come to us from Prime Trust that really help. That's one of them, frankly. Outbound wires is another. It's very, very difficult to create payment rails that are international, but Prime Trust really helps with that, with international wire stuff. So that's one of the other things. I think I should just mention, I think there might have been just one little tweak to how Prime Trust works. Like I've mentioned before, like our fees are strictly from a Coast perspective. When you're doing on and off ramp, there's no fee charged to you within the swap interface. But we actually, there are a couple of things to keep in mind here about when you're going from a bank account to on-chain. And I thought I just might touch on this in terms of friction points and costs, because it's a little bit different depending on the way you do it. Right? If you want to go directly from your bank account into USDC in your external wallet, it's actually 3 transactions built into one in the interface. In our interface, it'll just be one for you. You'll select the amount of USDC you want, you'll select the bank account you want to draw from, and the external wallet that you want to send to. But in actual fact, in the system, it'll show us 3 transactions. One where you're funding your digital account, one where you're swapping from fiat to USDC, and then a third where you're actually withdrawing to your external wallet. And Prime Trust does charge, I think it's a 0.1% fee on fiat to stablecoin transactions or swaps. So it's not past, it's something we have the ability to mark up. We could actually set it to anything we wanted. If we wanted to charge a 1% fee and pocket the 0.9, we could, but transparently, we're not doing that. Prime Trust charges the fee. I think in most circumstances, it's actually the user will get back a little bit of that, because when they send from their digital account out to their external wallet, those gas fees are covered by Prime Trust. So, I would sort of think of that as, or one way to think about it, if you want to justify it, would be, hey, I'm just paying for my gas fees, and 0.1% for gas fees isn't terrible. So, I hope that sort of explains how that works a little bit. I'm going to try and go to Chef here. I feel like I've given him the mic a couple of times, but I might be doing it wrong on my end, mate. Are you able to chat now?
Yeah, Chef has had some connection issues. He DM'd me. Let me see if he can do it now. Yeah, he it's not us. So what's up, Chef? Can you speak now? What's going on, brother? Hello? Can't speak? Damn. Yeah, just keep trying, Chef. I know you've been asking to come up here, and yeah, I know you've been asking to come up here, and I know you DM'd me, so just keep trying. I'll keep bringing you up. I'll keep trying.
Hello.
So, Corey, while I was sort of talking about those multiple transactions, I might just talk about one way that you could actually utilize this digital account if you wanted. You will effectively, without going to or from your bank account, you could actually utilize the Prime Trust or the Coast digital account as a bridge. So imagine a situation where you want to go from USDC on Ethereum and you want to get over to CST on Pulse. It would actually be quite simple to do this through the interface. You would send your USDC to your digital account. It would arrive as USDC, and then you could swap it for CST and mint your CST on Pulschain all in 2 steps. So send in and then mint. And for that, like I said, because we're not charging a fee because you're not going to or from a bank account, effectively what you would have is a bridge solution that would just charge you for the 0.1% that Prime Trust would charge you to go from USDC into fiat in your digital account. There'd be no charge for going from fiat to CST, obviously. So effectively, you would have a 0.1% fee bridge. Yes, there is some counterparty risk that comes with that, but if you're willing to use the digital account anyway, it should be fairly palatable to most people. So that's an option if anyone's interested in it, one way to utilize it. Chef, I'm trying to give you access again, man. Go ahead if you can.
Yeah, Chef, if you're having issues, you can always DM us and we can ask on your behalf. I mean, I can ask on your behalf if that's not working. So, you can always do that if you want.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. What's up, Corey? How you doing, brother? Great to see you, man.
What's up, dude? What's up, brother?
Good. I just had a question about the CST stablecoin and about its algorithm protocol. I was wondering if it's going to be the same algorithm as Rubik, just like Liquid Loans is using. And I noticed that when you buy through Coast, you are minting ST or CST, and then when you go to turn it back into USDC, you're burning the CST. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's not actually an algorithmic stablecoin. So it's just secured one-to-one by fiat assets in a Prime Trust digital account that's effectively the reserve account for the Coast stablecoin. The best way to think about the Coast stablecoin, frankly, is we're sort of working on two things here. The Coast stablecoin is as close to Trust token as we could make it. It's a little bit better in some ways in the sense that you actually mint it yourself. So rather than it being sent to you by the centralized counterparty, CST doesn't actually exist until you mint it. So it's as close to you mint your own stablecoin as possible here in a sense. So how it would work for you is, let's say you've got US dollars in your digital account, you would, through the interface, you would send US dollars from your digital account to the Coast reserve account. That would then entitle you through the contract to be able to mint CST. The first transaction would be free. It would just be a movement of funds with an internal funds transfer method between two Prime Trust accounts. And then once you are entitled to mint the CST, again, through the interface, you would be able to just run in a Pulschain transaction, and then boom, you'd have CST in your external wallet on Pulschain. Going back in the opposite direction, it kind of works the same way as if you were depositing USDC in your digital account, except that because we don't have a custody solution for CST right now, and because Fireblocks and Prime Trust don't support Pulschain, what we have to do instead, in order to keep the collateralization ratio correct, is the CST has to be burned. And so instead of you sending it to your digital account, you actually just send it to the burn address, or you run the burn function on it, which would allow it to be burned. And then that would free up assets in your fiat digital account that you could then withdraw to your bank account if you chose to. Or, like I'm sort of describing here, if you wanted to bridge it, you could just come back to your digital account and use that as a place to either store assets in fiat, or you could mint USDC, or you could mint CST anytime you want. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that does. Thank you. Now that makes more sense.
Yeah, look, the Liquid Loans and the Power City guys are doing a really good job on algo stuff. Like I said earlier, I don't know if you're around, but we really like the assets that they're collateralized with. We're very early in Hex, we're very early in Pulse and PulseX, and so very happy to see those products exist. If we can provide a fiat on-ramp to them directly, we absolutely will, because like Resolute was saying earlier, we're not in this for the glory, although some founders are, which is totally fine. We want economic energy on chain. If it goes through them, awesome. Hey, it's just more dollars on chain. We've all seen what the price can do with $100 million. We've suggested to our banking partner, hey, what if it was $100 million a quarter? what would that do? So we're working with limits like that we're trying to sort of hit. So, 100 million a quarter from us, hey, that'd be great. And if it goes to LL, beautiful. If it goes to Pulse, terrific. And if it goes anywhere else in the ecosystem, we're happy, right? So that's sort of the vision from our end.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's incredible. I seriously appreciate what you guys are doing. I mean, it's all about sharing the spotlight, not competing. I really, really try to live by an ethos like that. Even as a content creator, like I don't care who surpasses me in subscriber count. I don't care who surpasses me in follower count. It's not a measuring contest by any means. It's about sharing the spotlight by all means of the word. And I think you guys are setting a precedent surrounding that notion, and I salute you for doing so. I just want to say, Stoke, I can co-host for a little bit longer. I'm driving right now. My phone's at 5%. So I should have about 10 more minutes of battery. So I just wanted to let you know that if I drop off.
Yeah, no drama, man. If there's not a huge number of other questions, I know Don's got his hand up, so I'll keep going here as long as anyone wants to touch on anything. But I think Resolute is saying we can wrap it up if we don't have a lot else to cover. So we're happy to do this again. It's not a problem. Obviously, like it'll be a lot easier to start answering questions once we have a functioning app that everybody can look at. So we're a little bit hesitant to do this, before we had something everyone could play with. So hopefully next time we do this, everybody's maybe even got the interface in front of them and we can answer specific questions about it. So that's sort of hopefully where the next one goes. But anyway, I'll hand off Don if you want to go again, mate.
Sure, and I can go all night. And for starters, I'm going to set up a donation address to get Corey a iPhone charger for his car. I'll put it on Twitter if anybody wants to chip in. We'll buy this guy.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. No problem, bro.
Thank you.
But this will be my last question of the evening, and you guys can wrap up. And thank you very much for spending the time to go over everything. Much appreciated. I'm very interested in this digital account, and I like a lot that it has to offer. Does it have the offer to either A, connect with, let's say, a third party like Coinly for tax purposes, or B, download a CSV of all the transactions that go through it?
As of right now, there is no way to connect it to Coinly directly. But yes, there is a transaction download that you can run. I don't think we've got any filters on that right now. So right now, it would just download your full transaction history. But obviously, we'd look to build in, swaps, on-ramps, off-ramps, etc., as different filters you could set when you're trying to download your transactions. It's likely never, frankly, going to be as advanced as something like Zerion with all of their on-chain data. But some of this happens off-chain, right? Specifically swaps between fiat and crypto. So we would look to provide all of that. Some of those transactions are the objects are a little bit different than others. So, for example, some of these funding methods are instantaneous, right? Like we can do an ACH pull and money gets to your digital account immediately. But in the case of a wire, you create a transaction object with us, and then we have to wait for that wire to come hit the account so that we can then verify it. In fact, with wires, we don't necessarily know that you're sending a wire. You might tell us you're going to and then forget, or you might go send one without having told us that you're going to. So there's a little bit of moving pieces with respect to transactions there. But one of the features that we're trying to make sure we have is a way to download an individual transaction specifically for wires so that you can print it or just have it on your phone. Like just send it out as a text message or as an image file. So then when you go to your bank, you've got all the correct information in front of you, because I'm sure we've all done this, right? You go to your bank, you need to send a wire and you've forgotten your goddamn reference code, right? And you've got to drive home, get your reference code, come and do it again, right? So I don't know if anyone else has had that, but I've had that multiple times. So we're trying to, at least with that transaction object that you can download, have it be available to print as well or download as a PDF, so that you can go there and do that at your bank when you need to.
That's great. Very helpful. Thank you.
Alrighty. If anyone else has got anything else, like I see some people here I've spoken to on streams and stuff. I know Tangent's in here. I see Famous. If you guys have anything you want to go over, feel free. I see 3 commas. Feel free to jump up and grab the mic and ask us anything you want. If anyone desperately wants to discuss some weight stuff now, maybe just before we sign off, we could do that too. So, stick your hands up and we can do it. Otherwise, I think we're going to wrap this up relatively soon here. All right. I think that's it, mate. I might just leave it there. I'd like, on behalf of the Coast team, on behalf of Resolute, myself, and all of our devs, on behalf of everybody here, thank you for joining us today. We greatly appreciate your time. We are going to be available to discuss any of these issues in Telegram. You can find us at t.me/coast0x. Twitter is a great space to get publicly available information, but if you don't want to ask personal identifying questions on Twitter, it makes total sense. Feel free to come and send us a message in Telegram. One of the features that we've been working on for the Fiat OnRamp in the last bit of a while is having a fairly robust set of user tutorials and being able to have live chat and ticket verification. So there will be a fairly robust support system for the Coast OnRamp. We're not going to just sort of leave you guys and say, head off to Twitter and check our pinned tweet for support. We will be in there and we'll be discussing things with you if you have any issues. So, if it's KYC related, let us know. If there's something wrong with your jurisdiction, let us know. If anything sort of pops up, with a temporary driver's license and stuff like that, just feel free to use those features in that intercom window, and we'll be able to help you with your specific issues. Other than that, I don't know if Resolute's there, if he wants to sign off, but Corey, Don, thank you so much for co-hosting and speaking and asking such great questions. We've really appreciated that so many people have been up to come do this with us and have been so supportive online, and we hope we can repay the favor in some way. So all right, awesome. Thank you guys, greatly appreciate your time.
Thank you guys, appreciate you.
All right, you guys be easy. Thanks again, man. Peace out.
Cheers, Corey. Go charge that phone, mate.